Welcome, everybody, and good morning. My name is Isu Ma'at, and I am the Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer for the Orlando Magic. As I said a few moments ago, today is the final installment of our Walk With Us Town Hall series, a month-long celebration of Black History Month. We have had an incredible time focused this month on diversity, equity, and inclusion from the Orlando Magic, our partners, and local leaders in the Central Florida community. Today's webinar is focused on equality, our equality and social justice game changers. Each of our home games this season, our head coach, Steve Clifford, has recognized individuals and organizations who are working to create positive change in our community. We have a few of those leaders here with us today who have been recognized at our home games this season. So please join me in welcoming this all-star team, which includes, first and foremost, Desmond Mead from the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition, Dr. Randy Nelson from the Bethune Cookman University Center for Law and Social Justice, Miles Mulrain from Let Your Voice Be Heard, Rachel Allen from the Valencia Peace and Justice Institute, and last but certainly not least, Florida State Attorney of the 9th Judicial Circuit Court, Monique Worrell. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we get to questions for the panel, we have some poll questions for everyone in attendance today. Panelists, feel free to respond as well. Please use your phone, though, to scan the QR code on your screen. That will take you to a platform we call slido.com. That's SLIDO.com, and enter event code Walk With Us. You will have also an opportunity to submit questions for any of the panelists on Slido, and we'll open it up to the audience for questions at the end of the conversation today. With that being said, our first question of the day, it reads, according to the World Economic Forum, at the current rate of progress, approximately how long will it take to close the global economic gender gap? Fire away. I like watching the results come in and watch the lines almost racing against each other to see what the answers are. We still have a few people responding. So far, 157 years is in the lead, but 257 years is climbing steadily. And I will tell you right now what the answer is, which is 257 years, according to the World Economic Forum. Second question, according to data produced by the Pew Research Center, what percentage of white Americans believe African Americans are treated less fairly than whites by the criminal justice system? Is it 25%, 79%, or 61%? I'm watching the results. This is fun. Okay. The answer, the final answer, is 61%. Third question here. According to the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, Black Americans are how much more likely than white Americans to be killed by the police? The responses are coming in quickly to this one. Fast and Furious. Looks like a few people may still be responding, but the answer is 3 times more likely. The final question reads, according to the United States Sentencing Commission, on average, how much longer are sentences for Black male offenders than similarly situated white male offenders? Okay, survey says 19% longer. Panelists, did anybody get a perfect score? No perfect scores. Okay, well, we have nice parting gifts for you in the back. This first question really is to everybody on the panel. To make it easier, I'll just call on you as I see you appearing on my screen here. But the question is, introduce yourself, briefly describe your history and kind of the mission and goals and objectives of your organization, or in your case, Attorney Worrell, your role, and how can our viewers help support what you're doing? Rachel, you are first on my screen, so you are first up.
Well, thank you, Sue, for having me here today and all of us and for this conversation. I'm Rachel Allen. I direct the Peace and Justice Institute at Valencia College. And so our aim is to create a culture that is inclusive, welcoming, and respectful of everybody, really a culture of peace ultimately. And we do that through principles and practices that we educate at the college and in the community. And it's exciting work. And certainly, as we just saw in that poll, very necessary work. So we're happy to work with all of you toward these common goals. Thanks, Isu.
My pleasure. And what can our viewers here today, those who feel compelled, what can they do to help or assist you at the center?
Well, get involved, because the first step to so much of this change is educating ourselves. I mean, to find out that it's going to take 257 years for gender equity,
right?
And really realizing, why is that happening? What are the issues? So I'm going to think the first step to change really is educating ourselves. And that's what we do at Valencia College. That's what we do at PJI. So come to our workshops, become a teacher practitioner, become a practitioner of peace. We're going to be training facilitators so we can spread our impact throughout not only the region, the state, but even the nation. So there are a lot of ways to get involved at all levels.
Thanks, Rachel. Dr. Nelson.
Randy Nelson, the director of the Center for Law and Social Justice at the great Bethune-Cookman University. Bethune-Cookman, as you know, is founded by Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune, and $1.50, faith in God and 5 little girls. Here stands Bethune-Cookman University today. And Bethune-Cookman, like many other HBCUs across the country, are in the business of taking diamonds in the rough and producing the likes of Vice President Harris. So that's who we are, and that's where we are. The Center for Law and Social Justice is about the business of, whether you're Black, white, green or yellow, Jew or Gentile, rich or poor, having a safe and nurturing environment to raise your family. And that's what I work, whether we're doing in Bakersfield, California, or Paramore in Orlando. That's our work. How can someone help? I always say time, talent, or resources. In some cases, all three. Right. Give us your time. Come in, encouraging and talking with students, not only here at Bethune-Cookman University, but elsewhere. Your money. Our students, of which 85, 90% require some type of assistance. So, that diamond in the rough that Dr. McLeod speaks of, they're here, but they're not here for free. So, it's worth the investment. So that's what we would like here at Bethune-Cookman University.
I've heard it said another way, wealth, work, and/or wisdom.
Amen. I'll take it.
Desmond Mead.
Yes, so good afternoon, everyone. My name is Desmond Mead. I am the executive director of Florida Rights Restoration Coalition, I call FRRC. We're an organization that is led by and comprised of people with previous felony convictions, as well as family members who have loved ones that has been impacted by the criminal justice system. Our primary mission is to end the discrimination and disfranchisement of people with felony convictions. And one of our main areas in doing so is by restoring voting rights to people after they have served their time and they're out in our community. Um, we are a statewide organization with over 12,000 active members throughout the state of Florida, and we're engaged in all type of activities in the community to really show that we are, in spite of our past, that we can become an asset, and we are an asset to not only our community or the state of Florida, but to this country. If people want to get involved, they can go to our website at www.floridarrc.com to find the many ways that they can help, either through donations, either through volunteering, or through partnering with Florida Rights Restoration Coalition to help improve the conditions in our communities. It is an honor to be here. Thank you, Isu. Thank you, Orlando Magic, for this opportunity.
And thank you. Attorney Worrell.
Well, good morning, and thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this esteemed panel. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you this morning. My name is Monique Worrell. I was elected state attorney for the 9th Judicial Circuit in November. The 9th Judicial Circuit covers Orange and Osceola County. It's a culturally diverse community of nearly 1.4 million residents and is normally a vacation destination for millions of people each year. Our office is committed to making Orlando and the surrounding areas a vibrant and safe place to live, work, and play. We're deeply committed to the principles of equity, fairness, transparency, and inclusion. We work tirelessly to strengthen the social fabric of our communities and do this by keeping our communities healthy and safe, and by building a criminal justice system that works for everyone. Viewers can support the Office of the State Attorney by showing up for jury duty, by participating actively in community engagement that we set forth, such as task force and committees, and by remaining engaged in the political process. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I said when I was sworn in was that safety really resides within the community. And if you see something, then say something, and that helps us to work collectively to build a safer community. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. And Mr. Mulrain.
Thank you. Sorry for having some internet connection, so hopefully I don't get disconnected.
Don't say it.
We're having some internet, so hey. But I'm Miles Mulrain. Let your voice be heard. We're based out of Orlando, Florida. We have spread efforts throughout the state with some of our efforts, but true and through, we are based out of Central Florida. We kind of founded off of what our name says, let your voice be heard. We started as a community forum in 2016, kind of responding to not only the inner city violence and just being proactive, but also to the call out for Black Lives Matter with movements such as Philando Castile and Alton Sterling. And we started with community forums, protests, and then led to community efforts such as youth outreach, youth mentoring. And we work with such groups as FRC and others to also work for returning citizens and also work with the juveniles who are incarcerated and formerly incarcerated. At our core is bringing back resources and bringing back real values to communities that have been left out of the picture. So when we say let your voice be heard, it's not only for social justice or for brutality issues. We're often there when it's discrimination or when it's just a cry out for help. We like to do community events such as fun days in the park. And we also like to do canvassing when we bring out different resources from partners that can bring, whether it's financial help or it's legal assistance or just finding programs for the youth that are in neighborhoods. We're very active in Central Florida and West Orange County, but we also like to work with different groups in different cities. We've been in a lot of different efforts, and recently we also launched a new youth mentoring program that we'll be just kind of expanding on and asking for help with that. When it comes to helping with us, you can follow us on social media, Let Your Voice Be Heard Inc. on Facebook and on Instagram. And also our website is www.letyourvoicebeheardinc.com. We do active events, we do community events such.
I told him not to speak that into existence. If we get Miles back, we'll let him wrap up. Amazing work what he's doing with the youth, amazing work what all of you are doing. And so Attorney Worrell, I'm going to come back to you and get your perspective on what you see as the most important social equality issues that the Central Florida community face today.
Is Juneteenth. They come.
Wait a minute, we might have Miles back. Diane, if you can mute Miles, we'll come back to him and we'll go to the question for Attorney Worrell.
Yeah, so one of my, I think, biggest issues is that we seem to be seeking to incarcerate our way out of issues that are social justice issues, that are health issues, and public safety begins with public health. Right. I think I've long made it clear that we cannot incarcerate our way out of health and the resource crisis. People who suffer from substance abuse disorder, people who suffer from mental illness, we can't simply sweep them away in order to create the illusion of safety in our community. Investing in resources that are evidence-based solutions isn't just the right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do. Mm-hmm. Clearing the streets won't clear up our underlying problems. And in the end, it will cost us more money and we'll lose more lives. We need to provide our citizens with programs that can assist them with lasting change. I reject the implication that public safety and public health are mutually exclusive. We have to be willing to make long-term investments in addressing these underlying problems in order to achieve true public safety. Individuals who are struggling in the area of substance abuse and homelessness and mental illness, these are mothers, they are children, they are husbands, they are daughters, they are friends, they're grandchildren, and our colleagues. These are human beings. Any one of us could be them. And I am firmly committed to improving and expanding access to substance abuse treatment and mental health treatment through coordinated public safety approaches.
I think what will quickly become a reoccurring theme here also this morning is that it is impossible to have an ROI without an I. Love what you said there. Rachel, from your perspective, what are the most constructive ways to express opposing perspectives on these issues without being divisive and without deepening the divide between us?
Well, I mean, I truly believe that nonviolence is disarming. And so moving toward things in a nonviolent way can disarm what some people identify as the opponent or the other. And what we have at PGI, our principles, we call them our principles for how we treat each other, are practices of nonviolence that help us enter into, difficult conversations, but in a way that opens the door for truths to be told and for people to listen to one another. And I think for me to go into a conversation where I'm in an opposing view, I think it's important for the other person to get some sense that I'm open to hearing them. Yeah. And frankly, to be open to hearing them, I need to have done some work on myself leading up to this conversation, because it is not easy to be confronted with an opposing view or frankly with self. And so if I get good at that, if I get practiced at the discomfort of hearing something I don't agree with, the discomfort of facing myself, maybe my own internalized biases, the things that are blocking me from getting you or hearing you, I think I'm naturally, and of course then skillfully, going to communicate that to you, that I really am going to listen to you and I'm going to be curious. So we have principles like, turning to wonder. So if I hear something I don't get, I could say something like, can you tell me more about that? How did you come to believe that or understand it that way? Because I understand it so differently. And then we're in a conversation. And a great tool that Dr. Beverly Tatum taught us, she was the former president of Spelman, the HBCU up in Atlanta. She calls it felt, found, feel. And really, so if I have grown and worked on my biases and changed, I could say, you know what, in the past, I felt that way too. I thought that, and then I found out something different. And, now I feel this.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's disarming, because I think the disarming part of that is that I'm calling out myself. I had those same ideas instead of, you're such a jerk. You think in that way and you. So once a person's on the defensive, I think that what we know about the brain now, they're in fight or flight and they're not listening anymore. They're no longer in that executive functioning and they're no longer able to take in what we're trying to communicate. So honestly, I think this takes skill. I think this is what we're trying to teach at PJI, because it's not easy. But I just want to say I'm enthusiastic because I am involved with State Attorney Worrell and Dr. Randy Nelson and Miles Mulrain in some of this community work. And Desmond's always at the table, always at the table. All of us on this meeting are working together and hopefully schooled in a way that's, nonviolent so that we can advance this community. But thank you, Isu.
That's one of the 7 habits of highly effective people, right? Seek to understand before being understood. I also believe personally that there's a way that we can talk to each other and we'll open up and we'll share and we'll have an amazing conversation. There's a way that we can talk to each other and we will all shut down and not share much at all. And the difference between those two is that little nasty word called judgment.
Yeah.
Mr. Mead, as Rachel alluded to, you are all doing such amazing work. Some of the work you all are doing, you're doing it together. But a question somebody asked me recently, I'm going to ask you, and that is, what does success actually look like? Where should we be 5 years from now? A colleague of mine said it'll be interesting to see where organizations are on May 25th, 2021. 1 year after May 20, what happened on May 25th in 2020. But for you, what does success look like? Where should we be 5 years from now, 10 years from now? What evidence is there that we're making progress on these issues?
Thank you for the question, Isu. When I think about success, at first I thought, man, we're not even going to have enough time to really just list out all of the things that I really want to talk about. But even looking at our panelists, with Dr. Allen, Dr. Nelson, my brother Miles, and of course, State Attorney Worrell, that the work that we're doing collectively, I believe, will lead us 5-10 years from now for a more engaged electorate, right? Where we don't no longer have to sacrifice the safety of marginalized communities to make a small select few group of people feel safe, right? And that it would be a more collaborative effort. Like there's a strong through line that will connect communities, activists, corporate America, and even sports and entertainment industries, right? That basically tear down these walls that divide us as a people, right? And lifting up the fact that we are all a creation of a higher power that's worthy of being treated with dignity and respect. And that more engaged electorate would be have more control over the destiny of their communities, right? And I'm going to tell you, you see that there's evidence of it right here on this panel, right? When I think about how we work even with the magic in engaging the Latino community around community forums that was surrounding the sheriff races, encouraging folks to be more engaged during the election and to really have their voices heard. Hence, let your voice be heard for Miles Mulrain, right? But we were able to do so, and we have State Attorney Monique Worrell, right? while the establishment might have been leaning a different way, because we were able to encourage people to be more engaged in determining their destiny, we don't have somebody who don't believe in the school of prison pipeline, or who may engage in sentencing African Americans more harshly than any other race of folks, right? And now we have a champion for the community, right? And we see it here. And so I think that this is clear evidence that if we're able to tear down barriers that separate us and become more engaged electorally, right, and have a say in who is our sheriff, who's our state attorney, who's our judges, right, who's our mayor, who's our councilwoman, the councilman, and who's our governor, that we will create the new democracy that we want to see. We don't want to go back to the old democracy, because the old democracy was dogging out people like me, Miles, and Dr. Nelson. The old democracy had me driving around the state of Florida with a Make America Great Trump campaign sign in my back seat, just in case I get pulled over. I could lower my window, and when the police approach the car and look in, he'll think that, okay, I'm one of those good black folks, and maybe I might make it home alive, right? That's the old democracy. We're talking about, the people on this call is talking about creating something totally different, where all human beings, right? There's no illegality in being a human being. There's no illegality in wanting a better life, but all human beings are worthy to be treated with dignity and respect, regardless of their sexual identity, immigration status, previous conditions of confinement, right, or their age, that they're treated like as we would want ourselves to be treated.
Let me get my fan out real quick, because my computer is on fire right now. A brave new world. I agree. Anybody else want to chime in on this perspective in terms of what success looks like and the evidence that we're making progress?
Well, I just want to emphasize this idea of working together. I personally feel it is critical. And it means just a lot of communication, a lot of connecting, not moving forward too far down the road until we call each other and connect and say, look, I'm doing this. Because I just find that together we are so much more powerful. And what I'm noticing is that we have very similar ideas about the dignity of humans, what Desmond just laid out. And I think we're heading in a common direction. So I appreciate that that plug for, working together in a collective impact.
Teamwork makes the dream work. We lost you for a minute there, Mr. Mulrain. I want to give you an opportunity to complete your thought, but also pose this question to you. It's coming from the words of Malcolm X. You are either part of the problem or part of the solution. What advice would you give to corporations and others throughout the community that want to be part of the solution?
Thank you, and hopefully I'm good. I'm not even going to bring it up again. But yeah, so just to kind of finish up what I was saying before and kind of segue into what you just brought up, one of the things that's been going on with the recent Black Lives Matter movement has been a lot of corporations stepping up and kind of just co-signing the movement and showing that they support and care. And last year, Orlando Magic was definitely one of the first corporations in the city of Orlando, outside of the regulars that you always see that come to the table, who stepped up to say that we care. And I told them before, one thing about the Orlando Magic that makes it more genuine than another entity doing it is that me as a youth, I've known that the Orlando Magic has been implanted in the Paramore and the city of Orlando and different centers. You could go through the city of Orlando and see how many centers they've been part of starting. But things like that is what we need to see from corporations, because when you see the big hype of the people like Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor and all these sad people who are tragically, their lives are taken, and it makes these public national headlines, you see a flurry of corporations step up to say that we care and we want to show that we want to support the Black community. But support for us goes so much deeper than just showing up when it's just something that's a hype issue, because this is not just a one-time thing. We've had a lot of issues that many of us on this call and many of us in different communities have been fighting for years. So we like to see proactiveness. We like to see people who actually are embedded in the community, so that when things happen, it's not so much a rush to the scene as much as it is a reinforcement of what you've been doing. I like to note that people like the Orlando Magic and even people like BCU, who I know that Dr. Nelson has been doing this work for years and been seeing them. When we had the things that took place last year with the protests that reached a height in Orlando, we were able to see people like Dr. Nelson come from Bethune and bring their perspective over here to Orlando and join forces and show us practices that have been working in Daytona and other places that they've implanted this work in. And we've also been able to work with different entities to do that. And that's what it really matters. You know, kind of to answer the last question of success and what we can do with entities now is everybody has their own lane and their own area of expertise. We don't expect a company that is solely based on sports to come out and be the person who's doing all the mental health work. But when there's a time to step up and bring those resources and to say we support mental health work and we want to bring these resources to the community, that's the time that we can come together and collaborate. So I just like to see entities step up and just be proactive, not just responsive when there's something that takes place, but just show that throughout the year 365 you are implanted, you care, and that will go a lot further than just showing up when it's only something that's on the news.
Well, we're not looking for the shine, but we appreciate the call out for sure. The DeVos family, our CEO, Alex Martins, our players, coaches, our entire organization is committed to collaborating with all of you. And we will absolutely join you when the opportunity presents itself. But we're also going to ask you all to join us and share your insights with our Equality and Social Justice Task Force that, as you know, was formed because of how deeply committed and how deeply concerned we are as an organization for these issues in our community. Thank you for that. Dr. Nelson, how do we prioritize the disparities within our economic, healthcare, education, justice system? How do we prioritize? You're on mute, Dr. Nelson.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. It would take someone in black and gold to ask me such a broad ranging question. And I'll answer that in 2 minutes. The beauty of this work is all of us on this call, we're fighting in our individual spaces, but it's collective work.
Yes.
And one of the things that Dr. King mentioned, he said that he wasn't as concerned about the outright bigotry of some folk. It was the silence of good folk. Mm. And to me, that speaks to corporate America, that speaks to educators, that speaks to law enforcement professionals. It speaks to the broad range of individuals and institutions. And the work of the magic, with respect to our work, Coach Clifford, Michael Carter, they didn't have to come to those, you know, jeans and tennis shoes in the belly of the beast. They didn't have to come. Matter of fact, they called me and invited themselves. Mm-hmm. That's the conversation. Now, Coach Clifford couldn't speak to the trials that I've had as a black man. He couldn't speak to that, and he admitted it. But wrong is wrong. 3 ways to Sunday, whether you're black, white, Jew, or Gentile, wrong is wrong. He understood that. And he also understood that he had a voice. So whether folk are getting to this point because of the Floyd or the Taylor, whether it's white privilege, whatever the white guilt, whatever the space that folk are getting here, they're here now. Mm-hmm. So let's get about the work. That's right. Can't change anything that has happened in the past. In fact, if I were to get rid of every racist police officer in America, we still got 2-year-old kids being killed in Orlando. Mm-hmm. We still got more deaths in Tallahassee, where I am, than we had in the previous years. So those things, it's not this or that. We need to help. We need to hold police officers accountable. Absolutely. We should be front and center on that. But when folk are killed in our community, our babies on the street, we need to be just as adamant about that conversation.
That's right.
So that's the collective work, because we're all in this together. Mm-hmm. A mother in Paramore should have no more fear than a mother in the Windermere about her son being hurt by the police or someone nefarious in the community. It doesn't matter to me. Both of them are hurt. Mm-hmm. And we need to be about the solution. So I think that this work, although we don't have a lot of time to get, We're doing it in our own space. You fight wherever you are. Here at Bethune-Cookman University, you're fighting in several spaces. It's not that we're trying to produce police officers or lawyers. We're trying to produce folk to go in and change those things. Sheriff Meade and Chief Worrell, we need to have folks from Bethune-Cookman University sitting at that table. Mm-hmm. That's the work that we're about. And I'm honored to be a part of this conversation, but I'm more honored the fact the folk on this call we're about the work. A lot of folk will talk about the work, but folk you have here, we're about the work, and that's what we have to continue to do.
Love that. And you can just hear and feel the passion. Attorney Worrell, I want to come to you. Then Rachel, I want to come to you on this very same question about prioritizing the disparities that exist in our community.
I would just echo what Dr. Nelson said. I don't think that we prioritize and put one above the other, because all of these things need to be addressed. They all need to be addressed. We can't say, okay, we're going to deal with mass incarceration today, and then when we fix mass incarceration 10 years down the line, we'll come back and deal with, the racial disparities or mental illness or addiction. These are all pressing, urgent matters. And that's why it's so important for there to be a collective, because with a collective, Desmond Mead can go out and fight for the restoration of rights. I can stand and fight for fairness and equity in our justice system. Dr. Nelson can stand and educate the future generation to come forward and pick up where we're leaving off. Miles can stand and engage individuals who otherwise wouldn't be involved. Okay, let's just put individuals who otherwise wouldn't care or be paying attention. Right. Dr. Allen can educate individuals on how we can be most effective in doing these things. And that's how we attack as many things as we possibly can, not prioritizing and saying, well, this is more important and this is more important. When I took office, I had a list of things, 2 pages long, that I wanted to accomplish. Not in my first term, but like in my first week, right? I was like, okay, I need to do this, and I need to do that, and I need to do, and I'm looking at the list and I'm like, how am I going to do all those things? And the answer is one thing at a time. I'm just going to keep going, and I'm going to do one thing at a time. And each thing is going to be difficult and have its own complexity, but that cannot stop me from accomplishing that what is set out. And one of the things that I've noticed is that as a generation, we've become complacent, and we're not looking at the generations who have come before us and the fights that have been fought before us to get us to the place where we are, where we can enjoy some level of comfort that they have not yet, that they never experienced.
That's right.
But the reality of it is that we haven't arrived. We're not there. We're not finished. We must continue the race.
No, Isu, if I could piggyback, when I...
Yes, but I cannot allow you to speak over Dr. Allen, who was supposed to be speaking.
Well, let me, Dr. Allen, please.
Oh my goodness. Well, first of all, it's so awesome, the passion on this call. And State Attorney Worrell, I'm really, really looking forward to working with you and all of you. But I want you to know this. 3 of us sit on our county mayor's public safety task force right now, and we are bringing forth a vision to the mayor that is a comprehensive vision to look at this in terms of creating a resilient community, and frankly, looking at the structural things that are creating all these priorities, right? And structural things meaning, and I keep quoting Dr. Nelson, when I asked him the question about why is this happening? And he said in the meeting, neglect, generations of neglect. That's right. And so this vision we're putting forth asks us to address the neglect, but also address the trauma, the generational trauma and the current trauma that is created from the neglect. And so helping people look at preventing adverse childhood experiences, ACEs, building a more resilient community, and doing this in community, because I'm sorry, it is a cliche, it takes a village, but we are humans.
That's right.
And when a family is in crisis, when an individual is in crisis, and I know from my own experience, I'm 26 years sober. When I got sober and I was in crisis, I couldn't take care of myself. And I was an educated white woman. I had a master's degree, but I was inept because I was in crisis. And so it's also flipping the way we help each other. And when we see someone in crisis, we don't go, here's a phone number, call them. You know, we do what LaJuana Rains, who's working in the community, is doing. And she says, we're going to call you. And we're going to get the food to you, and we're going to get the counseling to you, and we're going to get what you need to you. We're going to help you. And so it's changing the way we think about our human dignity and helping each other. And I'll tell you what, it's something I learned in the 12-step program, is service to other human beings is makes me happier than, frankly, going buying some fancy purse or even a new car. When I care about others more than the things in my home or the car I'm driving, and I don't mean to be cheesy about that, it's just true.
Yeah.
And so we have more people waking up to service and caring about our fellow humans. And I know all of us are optimistic. This is an idealistic bunch, or we wouldn't be doing the work. But I tell you what, and you know what they say, and Beverly Tatum, I'm quoting her twice today. People say, oh, you're preaching to the choir. And she said, the choir needs rehearsal. And what I've learned in this work is, you know, a whole organism, a whole community can be changed by changing just 15% of the body of an organism. So we don't need a big choir. We need a well-practiced 15%, and we'll meet these changes that we're all here to get. So thanks, Isu.
Desmond, they're saying it's not about priorities. It's a platform. What say you?
You know, and at first I was going to say, excuse my exuberance, right? But I'm like, no, I need you to understand my exuberance, because I'm sitting here and I got into this frame of mind. It's like I'm on the operating table right now, and I'm like hearing the doctors talk about what they're about to do to me, right? And because listen, I'm coming from a person who have been incarcerated. I'm coming from the perspective of a person who have been homeless, who dealt with mental health issues. Remember, I was getting ready to kill myself in August of 2005 by jumping in front of a train. I'm coming from a perspective of a person who had felt the boot of a police officer upside my head on numerous occasions and caught a battery on a Leo charge because I'm the one that got hurt. Right? I'm coming from a perspective of that person that did have to drive around with a Trump sign, right? And so when we talk about these things, separate, no, they're so intimately and intricately intertwined, right? That it's going to be almost difficult to separate these things and work on them and prioritize them. You know, Michelle Alexander in her book, New Jim Crow, one of the things that she said is that it's not just one system that you're looking at. You're looking at a group of systems and institutions and ideologies that come together to create this new age of mass incarceration. And there's no coincidence that when you look at the communities that send the most people to prison, they're almost the same communities that are experiencing the economic disparities, that are experiencing the disparate treatment according to race, right? And so it's all that. Even with education, you see that with the level of education of the people who are being incarcerated, and knowing that prisons, when they're being planned, are looking at the test scores of even third graders to determine how many prisons they're going to build. And so it's all just so intimately connected that you do have to have people like what we have right now on this panel that are in their respective lanes, right? Prioritizing the work that they're doing, knowing that we're collectively working on the entire body, knowing that the arm is not more important than the leg, all right? But understanding, because this even speaks to, believe it or not, when you hear that mantra, of Black Lives Matter, that has in some cases been bastardized and in some cases have been manipulated, the true meaning coming from that is not saying that the arm is better than the leg. We know that, that they're all part of the body and they're all important to this body of human race. What the Black Lives Matter represents is that the same thing it represents when you're jogging, and I know you're jogging because you look like you're in shape, Isu, right? But when you're out there jogging and you twist your ankle sends a message to the brain saying that there's a problem down there, right? And when your ankle is telling you that there's a problem, your wrist is not going to respond, but my wrist matters too. No, it's saying that part of the collective body is hurting and we've been in pain and we've been experiencing these traumas, right? And something needs to be done, because if that's not fixed, it's going to eventually impact other parts of the body, whether it's your knee, your back, or whatever. And so the same way we have to understand that either one of these things are very important, but in our respective areas that we know we're prioritizing this because of the trauma or the pain that has been signaled to us that this have to address, but it's not separate. It is actually addressing the entire body. I hope that made sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. What I want you to do is pick that mic up and drop it for us, because that's what you just did. Dr. Nelson, your final word.
Yeah, I think the same. I think we can drop the mic now. But one of the things I was able to address Mayor Deming's task force, and there were two things that I said. I said, imagine gun violence as if it was the coronavirus. That was one. They developed a vaccine in 5 months that sometimes take 10 years. Just imagine if that same effort and caring went towards the violence that we see in our community. That was one. Mm-hmm. The second is we'll have task force. Make that your last damn task force. That should be your last task force. Mm-hmm. With coronavirus, they're going to move to something else. The vaccine is out to go. Let's do the same thing with the killing. Let's do that with the fact that 99.9% of the low performing schools in Florida are in Black communities. Let's do that when we look at our economic situation. That is the collective will of the people.
That's right.
And when it affects everybody, the coronavirus affects everybody, so everybody's all in. A little Black boy being killed in Paramore, it's in Paramore, so you don't have that collective will to change. And I think that that's what our work is. And that's calling on the good folk that have been silent to come to the table.
Calling on the good folk that have been silent. Miles, your final burn?
Oh, wow. That was powerful to go after. Yeah, but I definitely just feel like when it comes to this work, it's very essential that it needs all hands on deck. And just like everyone's been saying, everybody has their own area of expertise, their own forte, but we need to come together and make a real solution. I think the problem that we don't see sometimes is that you see the hype that happens behind these individual situations and that gets sensationalized, but we need to have that same kind of urgency with what happens every day in our neighborhoods. Like Dr. Nelson refers to, we just had an incident not too long ago where the 3-year-old was killed. I feel like when that happened, the whole city should have stopped what they were doing and we should have been all hands on deck, because it doesn't have to be a 3-year-old that looks like me or looks like you or looks like anybody who's on this panel for us to feel the effect of what a 3-year-old being taken from this earth feels like. And I feel like we need to have that same kind of just empathy and that same kind of frame when we just tackle all economic issues, when we tackle these gaps that we see when it comes to how people are sentenced, how people are treated. We just need to have fairness, because it's not just only about race. It's not only about gender. It's about humanity. It's about doing the right thing. And it's about equity. And that doesn't mean that we just make it even right now. That means we go back and fix the things that were done wrong. And then once we level the playing field, now we can start working on equality. And I think that's what we need to see more of.
I am going to leave the closing arguments to Attorney Worrell. You have the floor. Your final comments.
Thank you. Humanity shouldn't be an argument, right? Mm-hmm. People shouldn't have to fight for the humanity of others. Dr. Nelson mentioned the fact that 95% of the low-performing schools are in African-American neighborhoods. That shouldn't be something that we have to fight about.
Right.
If you see it, then we should fix it. The fact that the United States incarcerates more people than any place in the world, and here in Florida at a rate higher than the national average. That shouldn't be something that we have to fight to fix. But I reflect back on what Dr. Allen talked about at the beginning of the conversation is, how can we inspire others to join us?
Right.
Because for decades, we have been fighting this fight.
Mhm.
And our progress has been, we haven't progressed as far as we could have if we were fighting together.
Yeah, slower.
Right? So I look at a quote I have hanging on my wall from the late Justice Ginsburg, and it says to fight for the things that you believe in, but to do it in a way that will lead others or inspire others to join you. And I think that is the place that we are in now, is how can we inspire others? And I think we've seen it a lot, right? Over the last year with the murder of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, and yesterday was the anniversary of the murder of Ahmaud Arbery. We've seen unlikely silent people, as Dr. Nelson mentioned, coming forward and joining this fight.
That's right.
But how can we inspire others to care about the things that to many of us just seem like commonplace, everyday, basic humanity? And I believe that's the challenge for each of us as leaders, is having others join us instead of fighting for this thing that is the very substance of each of our existence.
Wow, what a powerful testimony from all of you. What an amazing way to end our Black History Month Town Hall series. I want to thank our panelists, all of you, for joining us. I want to thank you. I want to send a thank you to everybody who's joined us virtually today and who have joined us for all 4 of these conversations. We hope that you all can join us at our home game this Saturday against the Utah Jazz for our Black History Month celebration. And we invite you to continue the conversation by visiting us at orlandomagic.com. Walk with us. Thank you again. Hope to see everybody on Saturday. And man, I don't know about you all, but my fan hasn't stopped. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, Isu. Thanks to the Magic.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Blessings, blessings, blessings.